everyone, and welcome back once again to the Upper Tier Podcast, Pro Wrestling Weekly. We are here this time to talk about the recent pay-per-view, AEW Full Gear weekend just passed, and what a pay-per-view this was. It was booked almost to perfection. This is what AEW are capable of when they really put their mind to it. I don't know who was booking behind the scenes, I don't know who set this up or who the producers were, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it is working. Let's get straight into it with the first bit of action of the night. The first match was Pac versus Darby Allin. This one was designed to get this crowd up. It was over 10,000 in the Prudential Center, and it was really, really good in New Jersey. And this was just such a good crowd as well. They really got into everything. The opening contest was an important one because this was Darby Allin. You know, he had his manager Sting, and you had Pac coming back from injury. This one was massive because this one put Pac on a pedestal. This was designed to really elevate Pac to the next level because he did what Jon Moxley could not do. This one and the finish to it was so good. During the match, it did get brutal, it did get bloody, it did really feel like a fight between these two, and these two have history, and the history was just there in this match. The storytelling was so good, and you know, it was just the way Pac conducts himself. We've seen on Dynamite midweek when he had that vignette promo, something different about him, and he's definitely been working on his camera work and his promos, and you could really see that he was putting everything into this. The finish to this match, it was so good. The referee was distracted, and it allowed Pac to get the hit with Sting's bat. That was symbolic as well, to get the win by hitting him with Sting's baseball bat. That little bit of a middle finger and twist at the end really rounded off a fantastic match. This one was great. I highly recommend giving this one a watch. Next up, we have Timeless Love Bombs versus Sisters of Sin versus Babes of Wrath versus Bane and Shafir. This one was, again, a perfect example of why I love the women's division in AEW. Not only is there an absolute stack of talent, but this, again, the Timeless Love Bombs are so good that at storytelling and the way they present themselves. We know that Toni Storm at the moment has this kind of Margaret Thatcher thing going on as well, not so much in her personality, more the way she conducts herself in front of a camera. She's got that deep female voice and projects that authority across, and this Timeless Love Bombs thing with the synchronized dancing, with everything they've got, all of their personality elevates every match that they're in. This was so good. And I mean, the result, Storm and Mina defeated Harley and Willow, Heart and Blue, and Bane and Shafir to pinfall to earn the right to choose the stipulation for their semi-finals tournament match. That is the tip of the iceberg right there. You know, it looks like we're going to have a Timeless Love Bombs versus Sisters of Sin for the final, so that should be amazing. This tag division in the women's side of things in AEW is what I wish WWE would take a note from, because it is possible to have a successful women's tag division. Every one of the last 16 quarterfinals matches that we've watched, semi-finals matches now, especially on Dynamite and Collision, all of what we've watched is a perfect example of why I wish WWE would take a note out of AEW's book when it comes to women's tag team wrestling, because it can be done right. This is a perfect example. We look at the tournaments that WWE have done. We look at John Cena's retirement tour and the tournament for the who's going to be the final opponent. And we know people are just sick and tired of it right now. But this tournament, people have kept their interest in it, and it's going really well. This was a great match, and it was a great match because of the display of women's wrestling that was on point here. And now we'll move straight on to the next one. The next match was one that I hoped would end this feud. It's not been one of the greatest. It has been a great tag team run, do not get me wrong. Brodito shouldn't work, but they do. I think they've had a great tag team run. Not to give spoilers away, obviously. This match was kind of run-of-the-mill for a tag match at the beginning. The first kind of 5-10 minutes, you could see they were kind of feeling it out. They knew they had the time to structure this match really well. A lot of people were hyping this match up, and I read a lot of reviews on this match saying that it was a classic tag team battle, that it was, you know, not an all-timer, but they rated it very highly. I found it to be yet another FTR match that I've seen 5 or 6 times already at different pay-per-views, at All-Ins, at All-Outs. I've seen this performance from them before. They get the win, and they take the tag team titles away from Brodito. I don't think it was the right time to win it. But if you look at the flow and how they're going to set this up in the program that they're running with, this obviously now sets up FTR to potentially face Adam Copeland and Christian Cage when they return. I don't think they'll lose the titles until then, but I do think that they will drop them to Adam Copeland and Christian Cage when they return. I can understand why they took them off Brodito. I don't think Brodito's the right team to drop the titles to Edge and Christian, or Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. But I think having them two in a program with FTR really makes sense, because the way they work together is really, really good. And maybe they can bring the best out of FTR, because, as I've said in previous episodes, I'm not the biggest fan of these guys. So do not take my opinion at face value. But I don't like FTR at the moment. I'm getting really tired of them. They're getting really stale. I can understand why they dropped the titles. I can understand why Brodito had to lose this match, because the program that they're running with essentially will get them a massive draw down the line. This match was good. I'm not saying FTR are bad in the ring. They're fantastic as a tag team. Just very, very stale at the moment. And for me, this was a C+ match. Take it or leave it. The result kind of explains everything for you if you don't want to go through this match. But overall, this was just I'm not a big Stokely fan either, so we'll move on. Next up was the National Championship Casino Gauntlet. I like Casino Gauntlet matches. They're a bit of fun, and again, this was plopped right where it needed to be in the mid-card. And it was the inaugural National Championship, Casino Gauntlet. And I love these type of matches because of the mix that they throw up, because the opponents for each of these guys, it's always unpredictable when you really, really look at it. And ultimately, the build-up was focused on kind of the Hurt Syndicate and the Demand. So we had that Bobby Lashley, Ricochet, Shelton Benjamin kind of build-up to it, and it did end up with that. It did end up being like that, and Ricochet has won it, and the Casino Gauntlet to become the inaugural national champion. It's another belt that AEW really doesn't need, and the fact that this is there's a lawsuit between them and I think it's the NWA and the national championship thing, and there is a bit of controversy behind it, which is why I think it's tainting it a little bit. And the belt is basically a rip off of the national championship from NWA. But however, this match was a lot of fun. It's perfect in the mid card. This match kept the flow of the pay-per-view. It kept people drawn in, and it had enough excitement to keep people entertained, because sometimes when you hit that mid-card, because there was a lot of matches on this card, when you hit that mid-card section, you can kind of drop off a bit, and it starts to kind of, I'm waiting for this, or I'm waiting for this, and you can kind of slip down a bit into a little bit of boredom and a little bit of kind of, you're exhausted from your emotions from the previous matches. But this was really good to keep the energy levels of the crowd really, really high. And ultimately, Ricochet winning again, heel champion as the inaugural national champion, that works for me. I think he's done really well. He's working very hard on his mic work, and I think he'll do well. I'm looking forward to Dynamite. I'm looking forward to the post pay-per-view episode of Dynamite, which I will review, and will be coming out tomorrow, should I say. So yeah, I don't know. I'm excited about Ricochet having a mid-card title, and I'm interested to see where he takes it. Next up, we have No Holds Barred, Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly. This one had a lot of animosity going into it. Of course, it's Jon Moxley, so it has to be No Holds Barred. This one had fantastic storytelling. This one kept you locked in because of what we've seen on previous Collision and Dynamite. This one kept you really locked in on what was going on with these two, because these two are right at it. They were at each other's throats, and we've seen it at Blood and Guts, the rivalry that these guys have. And ultimately, it was really, really great storytelling because of how they built it up on Dynamite. I spoke about this on previous reviews, about how well they've been building up the pay-per-view storylines, and hitting a home run when it came to the either ending it or extending the storylines when it came to the pay-per-view matches. This is another one. And what I will say about this pay-per-view is it threw me for a loop. None of the results really went the way I thought they would have, in a good way. Pac needed to be elevated. He needed that win over Darby Allin. He got it. Did what Mox couldn't do. And ultimately, this one came down to the kind of redemption of Kyle O'Reilly, and that's what happened here. That was the story for this match, and they portrayed it so well. I know Mox gets a lot of flack. I know Jon Moxley's one of these wrestlers that people are getting really tired of and bored of, but when he puts people over, that's when you see the Jon Moxley that you like. That's when you see the Jon Moxley that really shows that he cares about this business and this roster and this company and will do what's necessary. So Kyle O'Reilly came away with the win here, and it was just so good to see Kyle O'Reilly get the win, because again it was a redemption, you know. And again, we had some fork work, of course we did. It's a Jon Moxley match, so you know, it was O'Reilly got a hold of Mox's fork, and as the match progressed, he broke him open with it, and he used the utensil even more, and you know, it was a brutal match. Again, it's a Jon Moxley match. You know, Jon Moxley got a steel chair into the elbow of Kyle O'Reilly. You know, it was so well done that I really was delighted for the redemption of Kyle O'Reilly and for him to get this win. Next up, we've got the TNT Championship. Kyle Fletcher, again, no disqualification. Kyle Fletcher taking on Mark Briscoe. I find this is for the TNT Championship. I find Kyle Fletcher to be really good as a heel. I think his promos, his attitude are horrible in a good way. You know, as a heel, he's really good. And Mark Briscoe's so good. He's so good as a face. He's so likable, genuine, and just, you know, you want to get behind the guy every time he has a match because of just his personality, how he portrays himself, and how he, you know, reflects that to the crowd. And this one for me was full of emotion, because we go all the way back to when Mark Briscoe lost his brother, and we never really thought whether he would come back and you know, as not his old self, but we always thought if he ever came back, would he be able to handle the business without his brother, because obviously they were huge in ROH as tag champions, and as a tag team, you know, there was a lot of hype about them, where they were going and potentially going to the big show. So to see him still wrestle and hold himself up, you know, going into this competition in particular, singles titles don't come up very often, or opportunities to get them for a guy like Mark Briscoe, who was one half of a successful tag team. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes when you're in a singles run, people can kind of lose interest, or you can kind of fall off a little bit. But he's done so well to keep himself up there and up, you know, that upper mid card, almost into the top card roles. And that win in the tables and thumbtacks match against MJF kind of gave us that little bit of belief that, hold on, this guy can go further. And in one of the insane spots, you know, it was one of the insane spots in this match, if I can remember correctly, Briscoe and Fletcher went through a table, and he did the froggy bow off the tall ladder. And this one was one that I looked at and I thought, oh God, you know, is he going to be okay? But again, when you get drawn in, you think everything is as it is. So Mark Briscoe came out of this match looking really strong, and it was so emotional to see him win that title, because you could see how much it meant to him. Fletcher knocked Briscoe off the top rope and through a ringside table. Multiple back bumps on thumbtacks, and you know, he was almost going to do a screwdriver brainbuster on the top of the turnbuckle, but obviously that is an extremely dangerous move, so I think they both kind of decided against that. This was a really good match. Really, you know, again, they really went with the redemption arcs in this pay-per-view, and there's one thing that, you know, when it goes against the grain and you get the results that you don't really expect, this one was one of them results that I loved, because the backstage segment then afterwards handed the custom TNT belt, the camo belt, was so good. It just cemented how much this meant to him, and I was delighted for Mark Briscoe, and hopefully this is the sign of better things to come. And now we come to the $1 million prize: Jurassic Express and Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander. This storyline was one of the best storylines that they've built up towards a pay-per-view for multiple contestants in a long time. So I'm not talking about, one-on-one, like, the Hangman and Samoa Joe storyline, but sometimes it can be very difficult when you have a lot of people involved in a storyline to get each of their stories across. But AEW done really well with Jurassic Express and Kenny Omega. This is obviously the centerpiece is Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, the Elite, effectively. They were there at the very beginning of AEW and beforehand. And with Josh Alexander, he's a really, really, really strong talent. I like what he done in TNA, and when he came across to AEW, he's kind of taken that character across, and it seems to be working. I think there's still a little development to be had there, to get him really up, in a sense of, up the card if he wants to move up that ladder. There's a little bit of work to be done, but being part of that Don Callis family helps an awful lot, especially with his heel character, which I really like. There was obviously the talk of, will Matt and Nick join the Don Callis family, because the money that was being pumped into them. The bottom line is this one came down to the Don Callis family again having the run over them. The contest ended, the Elite back together, but the family's stronger than ever. So both sides came out really, really well. Matt, Nick, and Alexander got the win over the Jurassic Express and Omega by pinfall to earn the $1 million contract. However, the Young Bucks did not join the family and went back to Kenny Omega. And in turn, the Don Callis family got the $1 million. So, both sides came out looking really strong. That's why the result was so important for this match. You wanted to keep building up on the two of them, because you don't want to let one side falter. And that was why this was booked so well. Both sides came out looking strong. You had the Elite get back together. We also had the Callis family win the $1 million and look really, really strong at the win. So great booking job on this one. Highly recommend you watch this if you like those tag team matches. And we'll move on to the next one. Okay. This next contest was a bone of contention for me because I was really worried. Women's World Championship, Chris Statlander taking on Mercedes Moné. I was worried. and you probably can tell why I was worried. I didn't want Mercedes Moné to have another belt, especially one as important as the Women's World Championship in AEW, especially how well Chris Statlander's been holding herself with this title. She's looked really strong, and Blood and Guts was a great example of that, how strong she portrayed herself and how she stood up and said, look, I can be a champion. This one, again, very, very good display of women's wrestling. This was a case of building Chris Statlander up as a shield for this title, as in, you're not getting past me. If you can get past me, you deserve to have this title. You're not getting past me. And the story was that they were going to have Mercedes Moné throw everything at Chris Statlander, and I mean every trick in the book that a heel can do. The CEO was just chucking every move, every little dirty trick in the book, especially outside of the ring. And there was obviously a kayfabe injury there as well, for Chris Statlander, which was important to heighten that story up a little bit. One of the key moments in this match was the fact that Mercedes Moné dominated for a long stretch, and it wasn't until Chris Statlander got her with a Blue Thunderbomb off the apron and to the floor that it really started to change. That was the moment you seen it kind of turn on a swivel. It was just a really good women's wrestling match from the two of them. I don't often give Moné credit because I find she can be lazy in the ring sometimes, but she took the pinfall from Chris Statlander. She remains the champion, but ultimately, this was a match that the result was correct. It was a really good women's match. Both competitors did really, really well, and I think the CEO could end up with a face turn at the end of this. I think the AEW fans are ready for a face turn for the CEO. And I think if Moné turns face, I think she'll have a better run. I don't think people really like her as a heel. When I say likable heel, when they're doing a good job and they're doing everything right, you can say you hate them, but you mean it in a wrestling sense. I don't think everyone's feeling Mercedes Moné at the moment as a heel, but I think if we do a face turn, it could completely change it up. So Chris Statlander beats and retains the title, beats Moné, retains the title. Right result. Again, booked really, really well. And Statlander came out looking stronger than ever. Okay, here we go. This is the match I have been buzzing to see since Full Gear was announced and this match was put in there. Steel cage match, Men's World Championship, Hangman Adam Page against Samoa Joe. Joe is unhinged at the moment. It doesn't look like anything's going to, put him down at all. Adam Page is looking strong. Both of these are going into the steel cage knowing it's going to be absolutely brutal. However, we do know that the Ops can be tricky. We know that they can do things to kind of inch ever closer to putting that title on Joe. So one of the moments that I think kind of, not shocked, but I think one of the moments that kind of, everyone started to realize that this was going Joe's way was when the cage door was ripped off. And that was one of the things. The Ops ripped the door off the cage. And I was at that point, I thought, okay, there's an entry and exit here. Powerhouse Hobbs ripped the door off. And it was one of those things where you're like, okay, if you can rip the door off, this is all going in Samoa Joe's way. And obviously with that, we've seen the result. Joe defeated Hangman. He's the new world champion. It was a big shock. I didn't expect Hangman to drop the title, but there was a reason for it which nobody expected, and it was the return of Swerve Strickland to come in and make the save for Hangman. That was one of the biggest shocks at the end of this match. Shibata obviously took the belt and was running around the outside and trying to keep it for the Ops. So one of the biggest was Swerve came out, new theme song, Swerve Strickland is back. Whose house? Swerve's house. The biggest shock that I took from this was the heel turn of Hook to join the Ops. I did not see that one coming. Very well booked. The result was right in the way that the story was going, the way the program was running. Joe defeated Hangman by pinfall, but we got Swerve Strickland back as a face to help Hangman, and Hook turned heel to join the Ops. Such a good way to end this pay-per-view, and my God, this one gets a 9 out of 10 from me. And the reason that it does is because they maybe could have had the women's tag team title match at the very end of the pay-per-view. Not the very end of the pay-per-view. They could have added this into the pay-per-view. It's not often we say we want one more match to an AEW pay-per-view. But we did think maybe they should have had the tag team match in there as well. That would have been worthy of the pay-per-view. But the women's matches that we got were fantastic. Really enjoyed this. This is a pay-per-view was booked so well. It's one of the best AEW pay-per-views we've had in a couple of years. And they seem to be on a bit of a run now. The last 2 or 3 pay-per-views that they put on, from All Out in Toronto in the Scotiabank all the way up to now, they seem to be really well booked. The storytelling in AEW Dynamite and Collision seems to be working really well. The flow is there. So they're on a good trajectory, and let's hope that stays that way. So it's a 9 out of 10 pay-per-view for me. I highly recommend you watch Full Gear. It is full of action and really, really good wrestling. The storytelling is fantastic, and whoever booked this show has done it absolutely right and a bang-on job, as well as the producers of these matches. So that is my review of Full Gear. I hope you enjoyed it. This is one I highly recommend, and we'll see you for the AEW Dynamite review dropping very, very soon. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.